Well, I think they are overwhelming because this is only the first step that Russia would like to take in terms of its aggressive policies and aggressive undertakings against Europe. Russia was pretty frank in December 2021 with two ultimata that was shared with or handed over to NATO and to the US, where basically Russia was demanding the security buffer zone in the Central Europe and its own zone of influence in the Eastern Europe. These are the Russia's ultimate goals, strategic goals. Russia feels it is encircled with NATO, that NATO is allegedly aggressive power, so it needs to defend. This is, of course, not true, but Russia was quite sincere in stating the goals it wants to pursue against Europe. So basically, Russia wants to redesign the security architecture in Europe. And Ukraine is only the first step. That's why this is so important that we as Europe, we as the collective West, are consistent and effective in supporting Ukraine in its resistance against Russia. Because if we fail to do that, then we are the next. And we in Poland, in the Baltic states, we feel that very well. We in Poland feel Russia's aggressive actions very well. The war is at our doorstep, and the implications, of course, are important for us, but also for the alliances that Poland is a member of, so NATO and the EU. 4 years of war has already changed the policies. We see that it triggered changes in security and defense spendings. Well, Poland is now spending up to 5% of GDP for security and defense. The whole NATO is supposed to spend 3% of its GDP for security and defense. We have a big package in Germany to be spent on security and defense for military means, for weapons, and so on. So Russia's deeds, aggressive invasion against Ukraine, it also triggered change of policies in the EU and in the EU, both on the level of member states and on the level of the EU as an organization, where we can see some attempts to boost military production in EU countries. So we have a SAFE program. There is also EDIP program that was adopted not a long time ago. So we need to be prepared for Russia's next steps that will be aggressive, and just to better deter Russia's future policies. I think the response was a mixed one, because at the very beginning, or in the first months, perhaps first year of the war, the EU was trying to be geopolitical, and it has adopted the harsh sanctions against Russia. It is already 19 packages, and the another one is underway. The EU, as a geopolitical response, also granted the Ukraine and Moldova the status of the candidate countries. That was also important to give a signal that the EU cares about Ukraine and is serious. There has been more of the assistance to Ukraine, more than 100 billion euro throughout this almost 4 years for the microfinancial assistance to Ukraine, more than 60 billion of euros for the military assistance, much more than US, than what Mr. Trump sometimes says, that the US has been granting Ukraine much more assistance than the EU. There has been EU MAM mission, so the training mission for training Ukrainian soldiers in EU countries. It's been up to, I think, more than 33,000 of Ukrainian soldiers trained in Poland, almost 10,000 trained in Spain. So this is like combined, well, this is pretty good combined effort to help Ukraine. On the other hand, I think there should be more consistency in the EU policies in supporting Ukraine, and some decisions, bold decisions, need to be taken. As we speak now, there is a great debate in the EU about granting Ukraine the so-called reparation loan. Ukraine needs billions, tons of money for the 2026 and 2027. It is estimated up to 200 billion euros for both civilian and military spendings. And there has been the idea to create a loan built on the frozen Russian assets, and this decision is still not there. I think there is not so much of an appetite within the respected individual EU countries to continue with supporting Ukraine. So this is the source of money that can be used, but still there is no decision. This decision is not yet there. When it comes to military support, there has been a program of European peace facility designed for Ukraine to help Ukraine to purchase military equipment and weapons, but for some time it has been blocked by Hungary. The same Hungary is blocking the EU integration process of Ukraine, and the same Moldova. So at the first stage, I think the EU was consistent and was trying to be bold, was trying to be geopolitical, but then along the way, there has been some hold on. These decisions were put on hold. There has been more of a fatigue about Ukraine, but still the war continues, and even more support is needed. So some watershed is needed, and we should continue with supporting Ukraine. And the EU should be much bolder in that, much more effective in persuading individual member states to go on with supporting Ukraine, because again, the security of Europe is at stake. Well, I think what needs to be said at the very beginning is that Belarus and Russia, they act in unison. So Belarus has been a co-aggressor of Russia. It has been providing Russia with its territory in 2022, and then backing Russia all along the way with its invasion against Ukraine. So providing territory, providing weapons, providing specialists, probably. The only difference is that Belarus was not, at least so far, has not been sending its own troops. So it has not been directly involved in military fighting in Ukraine. This is I think for many reasons. One of the reasons is that is the condition of Belarusian army, which is not very motivated, which is not very well equipped, and it could end up with the scandal when confronted with with highly motivated Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian units. But basically, what is important is that Mr. Putin and Mr. Lukashenko, they act together, and they orchestrate also the hybrid aggression against the EU. And well, we in Poland and our partners from the Baltic states, we feel it very well with weaponization of migrants, so the artificial migrants crisis on our border, the border of Poland and Belarus, Belarus and Lithuania, Belarus and Latvia. It has been ongoing since 2021. It has had its up and downs. The dynamic was different, but basically, even if for a couple of weeks now, winter weeks, which is also important, it has not been that intense. Still, it is there. We don't see for the last couple of weeks the intense flow of migrants to Polish-Belarusian border or Lithuanian-Belarusian border. We observe that Lithuanian border is breached by balloons. In 2025, there has been, well, we speak in December, more than 600 breaches of the balloons, freezing the operation of Lithuanian airports. And so on. So this is another, let's say, instrument of this hybrid warfare that Belarus, of course, with evident backing of Russia, is waging against Lithuania. I'm stressing on the cooperation and joint actions of Belarus and Russia because since 2020. After the falsified elections in Belarus, Belarus became even more, and Lukashenko himself, even more dependent on Russia. It can be seen in its foreign policy, it can be seen in its internal policy. So Belarus depends on Russia very much, and it cannot be, I think, separated that Russia is a bad guy that is invaded Ukraine, but Belarus is not that bad guy, and Belarus could be a partner for some kind of negotiations or talks. This is not the case, and I think there is a very consistent EU position towards Belarus. The sanctions against Russia are coordinated with the sanctions against Belarus. So in every, I think, not every, but in many packages, sanction packages against Russia, there are a few lines about Belarus, and this is very important. And what is also important is the fact that there is no political dialogue with Lukashenko. Of course, another challenge is the fact that the new American administration came into kind of a rapprochement with Minsk, and special envoys from the US are talking with Lukashenko. There is a kind of a trade off. This is what Lukashenko loves to do, bargaining and selling the political prisoners for sanctions relief, but this is important that EU is not playing that game, and that the EU is distinguishing between the official means of the regime and the Belarusian abroad, the political immigrants, which are supported very much. So this is important as we see that all the programs with Belarus were closed after 2020 and then after 2022, but at the same time, the EU, the European Commission, has been very supportive for the Belarusians outside the country, for the office of Svetlana Tikhanovska and the other politicians. If I remember correctly, this is up to 200 million of euro for supporting many different activities. Well, I think that the EU has approached this value-driven policies because, well, the evidence is that the EU has been supportive to Ukraine, the victim, not Russia, the aggressor, not Belarus, the aggressor. That's a fact. But at the same time, we have to be aware that Russia is at war against Ukraine. It is at the hybrid war against the whole West, and the EU as such. We spoke about its coordinated with Belarus hybrid actions against Poland, against Lithuania, against Latvia. But of course, there is much more of that. And much more of, let's say, kinetic even actions. So we've been observing in Poland in September the breach of our airspace of dozens of Russian drones. The military, the airspace of Lithuania and Estonia were breached. We had cutting cables in the Baltic Sea. So this is all ongoing. Not to mention the constant cyber attacks and massive propaganda in the social media, and not only in the social media. So basically, Russia is at war with us, and we have to be ready to respond and to be effective in that. And the structural discrepancy is that Russia is an almost totalitarian country with a very fast, effective, vertical decision-making process. So if Putin takes a decision, it is executed swiftly. In the EU, of course, due to our values, due to our modus operandi within the EU, this process is less effective, is longer. And this is a challenge for us to be more quicker in responding to the challenges that are in front of us, and to somehow improve our process. So I'm not arguing that we should drop our norms, our standards, our values, but the challenge for us is to be more effective in front of Russia.